Hello, and a spooky salutations to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's episode of Spooky Salutations. I'm your host, Weddle Blade Cruz. I'm sure you all loved the fact that I read part of The Raven by the original Goth himself, Edgar Allan Poe. Go ahead and click that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that bell to make sure you always know when the latest episode drops. And for my audio listeners, be sure to leave a 5-star review so we can make sure the podcast is pushed out to a whole bunch of people. Pretty soon here things may slow down in a couple months, and if that does happen, I promise to keep you all updated. So make sure you join the Discord for updates. Alright, that's enough of the housekeeping. Let's get down to the real reason you're all here, shall we? This seems like a good spot to sit and read these stories. So what do we have first? Let's see. Story 1. Growing up in a paranormal house, from Anonymous on Reddit. Every story is true, and I admit there could be logical reasons to it, but I find it all too coincidental to just be nothing. I am an atheist. It's complicated. I don't believe in God, but more so the universe. And I seriously doubt the paranormal. But these events as a kid have made me question it all. Here's the timeline. At age 8, I moved into a house with my mother and her husband. It was a normal and rather new house, 5 to 10 years old. Things were fine, and I don't quite remember the first few years of being there. Ended up knocking on the wall under the stairs and finding that it was hollow. My mom's husband cut a hole into it and found a large empty room that they didn't know existed. We never explored the inside, only investigated it with a flashlight. Aged 10 to 12, used a Ouija board to contact spirits. Age 13, my mom's husband got abusive to my sister, mother, and I. Fighting broke out every night. My mom took us and left. My mom's husband went insane and started abusing substances. He destroyed the house, stalked us, threatened us, the whole mile. He also claimed that the walls were talking to him and that people were in the house. Age 15, forced to move back into the house to keep the property. Mom's now ex-husband is in prison temporarily. Once he got out, couldn't come back due to a restraining order. Age 17 to 18, moved out to my grandma's again, but had to continue to come back to renovate the house. Often came to the house at night, which was terrifying, and often felt like you were being watched. Age 19, finally left the house for good and never went back. All except one spirit has completely gone away, and there are no more fears despite delving into witchcraft. Only fearing the dangers of people. That is the end of the backstory. The encounters will be put into sections, going from the most common experiences to more personal and questionable. All of this happened in the same house. 1. The demon chasing you up the stairs. Everyone fears going up the stairs after turning off the lights at night. But have you ever feared going up the stairs in the daylight? This was a common occurrence for me, feeling as though I was constantly being chased and watched as I climbed the stairs. It makes you wonder, something that occurs so often to so many people, is there really something there? 2. Eyes closed in the shower. Have you ever been afraid of closing your eyes in the shower, feeling as if someone was standing behind you? This was a common experience for me, lasting years as a kid, though this experience only occurred in one bathroom, nowhere else. Whenever my eyes would close in the shower, I would get an intense and dangerous feeling of being watched. When I opened my eyes, nothing was there, but there were times where I would get a clear vision of a little girl standing behind me. She had dirty blonde hair and a dress, watching me with a sinister look and a knife in her hand. If I kept my eyes closed a little too long, it would feel as though the knife was coming towards me. 3. Hide under your blanket. When it's dark and late at night, the imagination can run wild. Seeing things in the corner of the room, feeling as if you're being watched. As a child, your instinct is to pull the blanket over your head and force yourself to sleep. But have you ever felt something physically crawl onto your bed after you've hidden yourself? Felt it slowly move around your bed, almost tempting you to look up? That was my reality for a very long time. 4. Guardian spirit. Around the age of 10, I began to feel an intense tingling on my body at random times. I had to physically move my body for it to go away. Oftentimes it wouldn't. No matter how many times I scratched it or moved my body, it wouldn't stop on its own. The first time I felt it was right before a school presentation, as if someone was patting my back. Then at night, as if they were touching my arm or face. The closest thing I could describe the tingling as is a very low energized shock that lingered. Since then, it's always been prominent, and it's begun to feel like hugging, playing with my hair, stuff like that. I've since decided to contact it through tarot, and it has begun appearing in my dreams, but I've never felt threatened with this one, so I've continued to try and contact it more. When I tried to get answers through tarot, it basically told me that I'm a mess, and it's just here to try and pull me together. It also seems to be weak and feeding off my energy. My dreams being the best way to contact it, so basically a supportive jerk. 5. Ouija board. From the ages 10 to 12, my uncle and I would play the Ouija in my closet. Despite me already fearing the closet, it was the darkest and biggest space we could use, and it was easier to be in there when I wasn't alone. We contacted a few spirits and asked the exact questions we weren't supposed to ask, like, how did you die? Are you evil? But we never asked if we were going to be killed. I suppose that was our limit. We eventually got in contact with something. The planchette rapidly and aggressively went from the letters Z to O, spelling Zozo. Oftentimes, we had to recenter the planchette because it would glide completely off the board. It was the most active thing we got into contact with, and when we tried to replicate the movement, the planchette would get stuck, or it would be obvious we moved it. The thing also went by the name of Mama. and despite being in the closet, the candle would flicker heavily. We continued to contact it, but it was almost as if it was drawn to us. Even when we were actively trying to get someone else to come, Zozo would return. I assumed my uncle was messing with me for a while, and I took it as a joke. My mom and a few family members came over to play the board one day. Neither my uncle nor I were playing. Z and O, once again, were forced across the board. One by one, each player took their hands off, waiting a moment to prove they weren't moving it, then putting their fingers back on, and so forth. None of those family members knew about Zozo. 6. Vocal ghosts. One night when I was 15 to 16, my mom and her new boyfriend left with my sister, and I chose to stay home. There was a loud crash in the kitchen, and I rushed out of my room to look at the bottom of the stairs from the banister, but my view was very limited. Rustling and things being moved were heard clear as day. I called for my cat, thinking she was the one causing the noise, but she came from another upstairs room. She took instant notice of the noise, and that's when I realized I wasn't imagining things. I yelled down the stairs that I had a weapon, and the police were on the way, both of which were lies, but nothing happened, and the noise continued. I called my mom, almost in tears, and begged her to come home. Logically, I should have locked myself in my room and hid, but my eyes stayed glued to the stairs as I waited for her arrival. Once they got back, the noise stopped, and of course, they didn't find anything and didn't believe me. There was also a time where only my sister and I were home. If you couldn't tell already, we were home alone a lot, raised to be independent, as my mom likes to say. I was in my room with my door closed and heard her scream my name from what sounded to be downstairs. I rushed to open the door and then suddenly hesitated. I'm not sure why. She sounded panicked and in pain, but something didn't feel right. I called on her name and waited for a response. Suddenly, the door next to mine opened and she came out confused, asking me what's wrong. I asked if she called for me and she denied it. I went back to my room and didn't come out until my mom came home. This happened often, hearing noises either downstairs or upstairs when no one else was home. My mom's boyfriend had me help him look around the house with him multiple times, swearing he saw someone at the top or bottom of the stairs and heard footsteps or voices. Multiple people had mentioned hearing someone else in the house when they were alone, but never finding anyone. 7. Porcelain dolls in the closet. When I was 8 or 9, my mom gave me porcelain dolls that my great-grandma passed down. I absolutely adored them and often played and slept with them. One day out of the blue, I put the dolls into my closet and rarely took them out. I refused to have my closet door open at night and hated being in the closet alone. Whenever the door was left open or I was in the closet, I could feel someone watching me, despite the dolls not being in view. I refused to sleep until the closet was completely closed, and I triple-checked every night before sleeping. At least 3 times a week, I would wake up in the middle of the night to see my closet wide open, despite me swearing I closed it. Sometimes I would turn on the light and go to close it. Other times, I was too frozen in fear and swore someone was standing in front of it, and I just hid under the blanket and waited until morning. Even during the morning, the closet door being open made me feel uneasy. The porcelain dolls that I had once loved now became hated and the cause of my nightmares. My first sleep paralysis was when I woke up to see a dark figure move from the closet to my window. When I woke up, the closet door was once again wide open, and I quickly went to shut it. At the age of 13, when we came back to get our belongings, I found my porcelain dolls broken on the ground by my mom's husband. I grabbed them and tried to fix them, but they were never the same. When I was 15, the same fear of the closet and dolls returned. When I was 17, I took them out of my room completely and kept them in storage. To this day, I've never touched them after that. Hey, how's it going? Do you have your ticket yet? Come on, we're gonna be late and there won't be any seats left. What do you mean, where are we going? We're going to the graveyard, of course, to listen to Graveyard Tales, the spookiest podcast around that'll not only have you laughing with their dad jokes and old school references, but they'll also fill your mind with all kinds of historical paranormal knowledge. Honestly, it's like listening to a college lecture I actually care about and want to stay awake for. The hosts, Adam and Matt, keep things interesting by staying engaged and not taking anything too seriously by making jokes whenever there's an opportunity. I mean, what do you expect when you get two really good friends sitting around and talking about a subject they both love? My favorite episodes? Well, for one, their end of the year tradition of reading listener stories is always a blast. Not to mention the episode where they discussed atmospheric beasts, because I learned a lot of theories and information that I never knew before. My next favorite has got to be their episode on Alcatraz, because of how close I am to it, and it inspired me to one day go investigate. Oh look, the show's about to start. Let's go take our seats in the graveyard and get ready to enjoy the show. Graveyard Tales. New episodes premiere every Friday, and you can find them on all your favorite podcast listening apps and sites. You can further support them by subscribing to them on Patreon for bonus content like ad-free video and audio episodes as well. I'm gonna go take a seat and listen. See you soon. 8. The Tall Man. A figure tall and dark with no distinguishable features would watch over me. He wouldn't say anything, and he never appeared to be threatening. One day, I fell asleep on the living room floor. I heard someone talking to me and I replied. The contents of the conversation have been forgotten, but it was almost as if the person was warning me of something. I brushed it off, but then some sort of realization and dread hit me. I turned over to see the person standing over the couch. We talked a bit more, and I assumed it was my Ito, as he was the only other person in the house. As I fell back asleep, the realization was accompanied by fear when I remembered how short my Ito is. Once I jolted awake, my Ito came running down the hallway asking if I was okay. He mentioned that he heard a loud banging in the garage and asked if I did it. I told him no and asked him if he was talking to me earlier, to which he denied. He confirmed no one else was supposed to be in the house, and I went upstairs with a knife to ensure we were alone while he went into the garage. We didn't find anyone. 9. Lured by a demon. When I was 14, we stayed at my grandma's. At this time, my traumatized self was obsessed with escaping to Neverland and leaving my life behind. I would basically pray to Peter Pan and beg him to take me away. One night I woke up to see a dark shadow standing over me. I could see his eyes, and I recognized the shape to be Peter Pan. He was moving in an odd manner and had a wide grin on his lips. He offered his hand out to me, but instead of the happy and warm feeling one would expect, I felt terrified. I debated taking his hand, knowing that this was the one thing I had been begging for. But something was screaming danger. I ended up hiding under the blankets until the morning came. 10. The house itself. As I mentioned before, all of the occurrences above are all from the same house. None of the occurrences, aside from the guardian spirit, have continued since leaving. The house's aura was like visiting an abandoned insane asylum. Even with the lights on and other people around, it always felt like you were being watched. When I returned to the house, to live there, then to renovate it, all my old fears returned. The house was always tense, remaining unsettled and never allowing anyone to properly relax while inside. You were never quite sure if you were ever truly alone. And most of the people who have visited the house have remarked on feeling the same energy and having similar experiences. The last time I looked back at the house, it felt as though the building itself was glaring at me. I pity the people who have moved in there. I can only hope for the best. Holy wow. Okay, I will say that I think you are currently in the lead for having the most haunted crap have happened to you in your entire life. That was absolutely insane. Thank you for your experiences, and if you would love to share more, I'm more than willing to hear more. Wow. Okay, just the trifecta. Just an immense amount of hooty-hoo and hoopla. I normally have words, but this time I'm stunned. Like, all this in one house. What happened there? Was it an ancient Indian burial ground? Why was it so evil and so dark? Holy crap. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else, I think we will read one more story, because that was a lot to take in. Thank you for your story, and I hope you're doing well. Now it's time to move on. Story 2. My childhood home used to be a school, and I'm pretty sure it traumatized me. From DJ707 on Reddit. Now, I don't know a ton about the history of my childhood home, but I know that it was old as hell, and one of the creepiest places I've ever lived. It was a 4-story house. Fancy, right? With lots of dark spaces and long stairways. Basically, it was big. There wasn't a moment in that house that I felt like I was truly alone. And there wasn't a hallway that felt truly empty. I was just barely out of toddlerhood when I started to develop severe anxiety. I was afraid to do anything alone. I was always checking behind me, sleeping with my head under the covers, seeing things, hearing things, you name it. I'm almost 100% sure that there was something paranormal making me feel that way. I wasn't the only one seeing and hearing things though. My older brother shared a room with me, and He always slept on the top bunk. His bed was maybe a foot away from the ceiling, and the attic was right above us. He told me that some nights he'd hear adult footsteps right above his head, just circling the attic. But it gets weirder. He's told me that at one point he woke up next to a shadowy figure just lying in bed with him. He claims that the figure had 2 white specks for eyes, and it wasn't acting malicious, just lying there silently. This might have been some kind of sleep paralysis hallucination, but considering the other events, I wouldn't be surprised if it was some kind of spirit. And now on to the worst one, the playroom. That room was the creepiest freaking thing in the house, and I get shivers just thinking about it. It sat at the end of a long hallway on the top floor, just below the attic. My room was down the hall from it, and it was always pitch black. I remember staying up at night, staring at it, just in case something moved. I often couldn't take my eyes away in fear of something appearing if I did. Somehow, every time I looked at that doorway, the door was wide open. And the door wasn't weak either. It worked perfectly fine and wouldn't open unless you turned the knob. I'd ask my dad to close it before I went to bed, and it would stay closed for a bit until it just slid open again. I'm not a door specialist, but it was just arguably creepy. But wait, there's more. Now that we're older and out of the house, me and my brother found out that we shared a terrifying experience. We both saw something incredibly creepy in the same place. I remember vaguely it was a small, neutral, glowing white face in the playroom. It looked a bit like a little kid. From my memory, it had no body, just a pure white face in the dark. It was around my height, and its eyes were kind of just not there. I don't remember much, but I remember it was the single most terrifying thing I'd ever been through. I don't know if I hallucinated or what, but I know it felt incredibly real at the time. Maybe it was a dream or something, because all I remember is seeing that freaking face, getting scared, and running back to my bed. I don't think I screamed, but I seriously don't remember. I kind of love and hate thinking about it because it just makes my hair stand on edge. Thanks to that house, I have been diagnosed with anxiety. I'm taking medication for it, and I'm alright, but I thought it was worth noting. Yo, what is it with y'all and like scary houses? Like, come on now. I hope when I end up getting a house that's not gonna be haunted. It's expensive to buy houses, especially in today's market. Man, a Mexican's gotta feed his family. Dang, man, y'all really got some scary houses. Like, these are terrifying. I don't know what a lot of people are just like. I don't know if a lot of people just like have bad luck of the draw or what, but man, Oh boy. Okay. Well, thank you for allowing me to read your story, and I hope you're doing well. If you have more stories to share, I am more than willing to read them. Thank you again. Alright, everyone. We are running a bit long, so I would like to thank each and every single one of you for tuning in to tonight's episode of Spooky Salutations. Once again, I'm your host, Blade Cruz. Please do not forget to hit that like button, comment your favorite part, subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you're coming back on the regular, you might as well. For my audio listeners, please leave a 5-star review. I mean, you can leave a 5-star review or just tap on the 5 stars. Every little bit helps. And I hope to continue doing this with you guys. Thank you. And I'll see you guys in the next one. And remember, fear keeps us alive. Bye, everyone.